Ghost Cult Magazine welcomes in John from Moontooth. How are you doing, man?
Good, good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Really appreciate you. Congratulations on this surprise and surprising new EP, the Violent Grief Sessions, out on Pure Noise Records. Out now, right? It's out everywhere.
It's out now. It's been out. The album itself came out in July, I believe, and then we did this live performance, kind of like a in studio kind of thing that we filmed. It was the acoustic EP plus a couple covers, and I think one other song that we didn't record acoustically. And then now, as of like 2 days ago or something, that sessions is available on like streaming services and whatnot. So you can listen to it, but you can also watch it on YouTube and everything. So it's all out there. It's all fucking done and out there.
Right on, right on. And let's talk about that for a second because I know there are differing schools of thought. And Moontooth is a band you guys have kind of done everything your own way. Much respect. I really dig that. Still had a DIY spirit even when you signed with the label. And but the surprise release is, it's not a total surprise, but it's just like, hey, we're putting this out. Surprise. In that respect, I think like there's two schools of thought. I know historically surprise releases in rock and metal don't do well. A couple have historically gone really bad. But I think for something like in this environment in 2020, and I wanted to get your take on this to start things off, I think you can kind of, there's a lot of latitude right now. People are jonesing, I think, for music and content. And I think the live stream is really cool of you guys to do. So I think this is really a neat present to fans, if anything else.
Yeah, definitely. Well, what a funny thing about this is that it was already kind of like in the works. I think before the pandemic started, we were talking about doing this acoustic EP kind of thing. It was really going to be just like a live. We were going to film it live with an audience, kind of like an MTV Unplugged thing, a more intimate kind of setting, which would have been awesome. But then the pandemic hit, and then it was just like, all right, well, I guess we'll make an album of it, and then we can eventually do a live stream. So it's funny that like I keep forgetting that we did this wasn't just in response to the pandemic, that we were already kind of getting started to do this already. It was going to be a bit of a surprise anyway, but it worked out good, stretching out, doing an album. I mean, we told you mentioned something about like signing to the label and staying kind of like independent in our I guess creative mindset. I got to say though, Pure Noise Records that we're signed to, everything we've said to them since we've been with them about like, oh yeah, we're thinking about doing this, it's always been like, cool, that's great, yeah, do it. And so they've been totally awesome. It's really like clearly a label like run by people who've been in bands, and they're really legit. So I mean, the acoustic EP, we were just gonna do it for streaming, and they're like, let's print up some vinyl. So we're like, oh awesome, so it turned into this kind of like much bigger thing that worked out really well to span the gap and put that content out there. And while we can't tour, we missed I think 2 tours because of the pandemic, but so yeah, it worked out pretty good.
Indeed, and I'm so sorry for your crew and the band and anybody that worked with you. And the loss of income is
Yeah,
unfathomable. And I'm reading and seeing all these stories from all over the world, not just the bands, not just us journos who have nothing to do now except video interviews on YouTube and podcasting, but and photographers have no one to shoot and things like that. But yeah, there's a whole infrastructure of people who are out of work and
then
there isn't much help at all. Our country has done the littlest of any country
yeah,
to help the music industry at all.
yeah, and the independent venues as well. That's something I'm really scared about as well, because like I this isn't some kind of like sci-fi horror movie where I think that this is just going to go on indefinitely. So touring will come again, I'm sure of. But what's scary to think about is that for some of these independent music venues, one in particular on Long Island that we love is Amityville Music Hall. It's a really
Right.
special place to us. You know what I mean? Like as far as I'm sure they're struggling. They haven't said anything like, "Look, we're about to close" or anything like that. But you think about venues like that, about St. Vitus in Brooklyn, and you just like, please God, let these places get through, because like they're hubs for true culture and art, and if they go down when this is all done, I don't want to see a fucking sports bar where cover bands pop up. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but there's plenty of that, at least on Long Island, you know?
Right on. Yeah, I know the crowdfunding campaigns for St. Vitus and also Lucky 13 were super promising.
Yeah,
Although other places like Blackthorn is now closed, Blackthorn
yeah,
51 is closed, so that's a bummer. The island has always been a fixture in New York City area shows and tours, and Amityville is a place I've been to. I saw a bunch of great shows there. It's
yeah.
like sort of a I always joked at the music hall name because it's a long bar with a stage, but it is got a lot of charm and it is a great place,
Okay.
especially to see like a punk or a metal show. And they've had many, and they put a lot of bands on that other places wouldn't put on,
Yeah.
and so I always respected them. I hope they stay afloat.
Yeah, they treat bands too, especially young bands, they treat good. We haven't really, like, dealt at least at Amityville Music Hall, we haven't dealt with too much of, like, the pay to play bullshit or anything, and, there's other venues that do that a lot, and they dick around bands, but the staff at Amityville again, it's like it's band dudes, you know what I mean? There's, like there's entrepreneurs that started that at a bunch of other businesses on Long Island that were, like, band dudes and just get it, and you wanna see that shit thrive, especially around here, you know?
Right on. And I think it also plays into what you said about pure noise, which again is like you can't always count on that really cool connection of somebody that has walked in your shoes. But it is comforting when you do. Pure Noise, as far as I'm concerned, has always done a great job. It's a really interesting label with a lot of cool bands, and you're now on that label, so very cool for you guys. And it'd be cool. It'd be cooler if the whole industry was like that. Obviously, it can't always be that way with ex-industry people in key positions and kind of doing it a certain way and creating a certain culture around it. But it'd be, a guy can dream.
I gotta give a shout
Okay.
out before we move on also,
Yeah.
because we initially released Crux, our last like full length album, on something called Modern Static Records, and that's two of our friends, Tom and Travis, who were already both involved in the music industry in different ways. They've been wanting to start a label for a while, and they started it up. And at the time, nobody was biting, no labels were biting or anything, and they were just like, "Let's just fucking do this shit ourselves." And they put the money up to press the record, and it was after they took the chance on us and worked with us that all these things, we got like Rolling Stone and Pitchfork and all these things. And so big shout out to Modern Static Records too, because we wouldn't be sitting where we are right now if it wasn't for them.
Word, of course, and Crux. I think it's very interesting. Before we jump into the EP, and I want to talk about, just unplugged and acoustic stuff in general. I wanted to ask you, just kind of like, do you feel, again, as a band that has, like I said, plotted your own course with the praise and the sort of acclaim that has come with Crux? Do you feel any different heading into your next album or whatever you guys are going to do next? Do you feel any pressure? Do you feel any different? Like, oh, now we're a different kind of band, and what are we going to do? Or just like, nope, we're going to just do what we always do.
Well, not so much. There is an interesting thought. Like if it's so well received, of course the thought is in your head of just like, I wonder if like something, I shouldn't even say this out loud because it's like saying the boogeyman's name, but like I think as a person in a band, one of the scariest things to think about is like how bands you love, like everybody has that one album that they love, and then everything after that was just like, yeah, it was all right, or it was like it was terrible, objectively speaking. But so there's a little bit of that thought of just like, I wonder, how people are going to react to it, but we're going to do what we want to do because that's why we started doing this in the first place. And at the end of the day, we have to like the songs the most. Um, because then why fucking put it out there, so there's not too much pressure. There's pressure in that you just wonder, like, I wonder how this is going to go down, but there's also like, if people don't like it and it doesn't reach whatever kind of heights that Crux did, it's not going to mean we're going to be like, all right, well, I guess I better go for that like accounting job or something like that. We're still gonna, at the very front of this, we're doing this for ourselves. So, but yeah.
Right on. Right on. I dig it. And yeah, I just the thought occurred to me. I also feel like we're in a like the Spotify streaming age where people's tastes are widening a little bit. We're not so genre elitist. Um and Moontooth kind of falls to me in a category. You guys have had your mathy metal stuff like the Dillinger. You guys have your sort of progressive rock moments. You have like your very jazzy coffee shop rock and acoustic jams. This is why the unplugged record stuff works so well, I think. But I think of like a new like there's a new era of bands, kind of like a Covet or Thank You Scientist and groups like that that you guys can kind of hang with, even if you're not exactly a one to one with anybody. And if you look at the fan bases of those, there's a lot of room to grow still. And I think that's probably true of
Yeah,
you guys
yeah,
too.
definitely. Yeah, I think so, and I think it's a necessary. What you're talking about people having more of an open mind to things, I think is absolutely necessary, because when you don't have when the masses don't have an open mind, that's when you get, whether it's film or albums, or that's when you get shitty remakes and you get shitty bands just trying to make the same albums that somebody else got a hit off of. And like, how many people have you heard complain about, like, oh yeah, movies nowadays they just make sequels and reboots? It's like, well, because that's what people, they just, nobody tries new shit. You know what I mean? You have to, if an artist is going to make something true, they have to be brave enough to put it out there. And people need to be brave enough to take a chance on it. And the reward of that is either you find something you never thought you'd find and you fall in love, whether it's a movie or an album or whatever. You find something, you fall in love, or even if you don't like it, you're adding to, in the industry's eyes, the fact that people like, oh well, people will give it a shot and it's worth investing in this unique thing, not just like, we need another Hangover movie. What should we write it about? Just write it the same fucking way. It's fine. You know what I mean? Or like, I'm using movies a lot, but there's just so many parallels to make. You see it in music all the time. The same fucking albums being made and the same shit that gets played on the radio, and but it's, I don't know. I want to be excited. I want to find something new and weird. I don't want the same fucking shit. There's no courage in that. There's no room to explore. It's just bubblegum that, I don't know. I'm getting on my fucking podium right now.
That's okay. Get on your soup. Preach, brother. Preach. I want to hear it. This is a great topic and something that doesn't get talked about either too much or not enough, depending on what your circle is. And we're all probably in our own little echo chambers. I was surprised and exhilarated at how great the new AC/DC is. That's a band that gets murdered historically by critics and fans about. They made the same record 15 times. Their new record is actually one of their best records ever. It's varied. It's different. It's the same band with the same style, and they really took their time and wrote really great songs. And I was like, wow, this is I was not expecting this great a record from them. Maybe that's my fault, but I shouldn't overlook a great band and the capability of them to pull out something great. But
I'm
it's
gonna
kind of a comeback record for them a little.
I'm gonna put it on after this, because it's funny that you say that, because I've been hearing shit. But uh, Nick, our guitar player, text our band thread like 2 or 3 nights ago, was just like, you guys need to fucking check this out. And then Ray, our drummer, was like texting. He was late to the game, and you could tell he was a little drunk. I guess him and his fiance were hanging out and having some drinks, and he was just like, dude, what the fuck? This is it. So I definitely after this, I'll throw it on. I haven't listened yet, but I love AC/DC.
Yeah, man. It's great to hear Brian back again. I know he was,
Yeah,
hearing problems. That's like the scariest thing I could ever think of is like a musician or a singer losing their hearing. I
yeah,
can't imagine.
it's got to be
But
rough.
yeah, for sure. So Violent Grief Sessions, man. So you said you had this idea before the pandemic, and you got to do the live stream event thing. So that was really cool. It is interesting how well these songs work unplugged, matched against either the Crux material or different songs. And again, you've always had that kind of thread running through, but it's like not everything can work as an unplugged song. You've heard a lot of bands talk about. You mentioned the MTV Unplugged thing, which is iconic, and apparently the series has come back and is coming back again in 2021 when things reopen. But and I guess Metallica just did their live stream and it did a half a whole set unplugged. And I remember like 20 something years ago not wanting any part of them playing with acoustic guitars, and now I'm like, man, this is awesome. So I think it just kind of like what was you guys obviously had envisioned that it would work, and how did you pick the songs is I guess my actual question.
I think in part it was like, well, the initial idea of like wanting to do it was that we're very much like, in terms of the music that the four of us listen to, I always describe it as like a four-way Venn diagram. And in the middle there's like the bands and artists that we all listen to that are varied and not just like metal or rock. Obviously a lot of metal and rock bands, but like varied from anything from hip hop to classical. And then there's the outsides where we all have different things that we do, and that's kind of one of the reasons why we have the sounds that we do. But and you hear that in our records, but you don't ever get to hear it in that I think that gives us an ability to uh what's the word, like play to different strengths, you know what I mean? Because we make loud, heavy rock albums, but speaking for my bandmates, I think they're some of the best musicians I'll ever meet. They're so capable. They're not just one trick ponies, is what I mean to say. And So we really saw it as a chance to kind of like, well, let's stretch out and see how we can translate these things, because the songs themselves really could be anything if you take it down to the chords and the rhythms and the melodies, and then you could turn it into anything. You know what I mean? There was a song that was on the table for possibly getting on a new song, getting on Violent Grief, that didn't make it on there. We thought to just keep it on one. And then we've been working on new material, and it recently got changed to this big fucking electric thing that sounds totally different. So getting back to what you were asking in terms of selecting the specific songs, a big part of it was like, and then there's songs like Trust or Odd All Angles that are big rockers, but then that was an interesting challenge of like, let's see what we can do with that. And some of them we were just like, let's change it up a little bit. Trust, we changed up a little bit, and some of them are like, let's just do it right as it is on Crux, the album, but except acoustic. And so yeah, it was a mix of what works well acoustically and what would be interesting to fuck around with and change. Kind of an
Nice.
answer to.
Was there anything? Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Was there anything you guys considered doing that just didn't work when you started to, try it out unplugged?
um I don't think so. No, I think everything we put on there, we added on the live session that we did, we added the song Musketeers, um and which was fun to do acoustic, and I think came out sounding kind of cool. And when we were playing it, um there, I think it's like the last chorus, because the choruses in that song, I'm all just like fucking like full register belting it out. And on the last chorus, I randomly just tried something else that was a little softer and changed the melody of it a little bit, and I ended up thinking like, oh, that was so, I like that a lot, I should have done that every time. And like, so that would have been maybe cool to have it in there, but at least it's, well, you can listen to it now, so essentially it is out there, so fuck it. But no, 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 there was nothing really that was fighting us too hard. No song that was like really not working out at all. Kind of, it was difficult for the guys. I know it was more difficult than they anticipated, translating to acoustic, and they had way more headaches than they thought in terms of, I guess, just playing it and structure. And so much of their sound is the tone and everything like that. For me, it was a lot easier because I have, you know, I'm a melodic singer, so like I was, chomping at the bit to be like, fuck yeah, I'll sing more quiet. It's so much easier, and I can do a little bit more, and I can, do more acrobatics if I'm not fucking, like, so.
Right on, right on. I would think that probably the hardest person in that scenario is always the drummer, because you have to underplay a little bit if you're a certain kind of drummer, like in a modern context. So, but yeah, you, the singer, would have the most latitude. Like, I can now take more, I can do more if I
Yeah,
don't have to go full bore.
yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah, Ray
good stuff.
definitely. I think it's interesting that you mentioned that, because Ray did such a wonderful job of like, when we initially were talking about it, we thought about the idea of like having a kit with like a towel over the snare, maybe playing with brushes or something. And he had this cajon, like that box thing, which he's like, I don't want to use the fucking box. I don't want to do that, which I understand. But he started using it. He's like, just fucking sounds good. I just, I get like, but what he pulled off with that, especially the newer song Six of Swords, and he had the shaker, and I don't know. Again, it goes back to like his talent, and I'm lucky to be playing with these guys because he translated using a fucking box and a shaker. Like he did some really, he made it sound like perfect for what it should be. He wasn't reaching in any direction, and I think he really he probably had the most to change or figure out in this project for Violent Grief. Anyway, I mean,
Yeah. Makes sense. Not that this would be a major problem for this kind of band anyway, but maybe now that it's out there in the world and you put this session out and you put this album out, Do you think that even more, and obviously you built kind of a fan base who's willing to bend to what the band does. So you think now, well, now we put this record out, we could do what it could be next. I think about like a band like Voivod on their recent live album. They did like the Montreal Jazz Festival and came out and did a whole one of their newer songs with like a whole brass section. So like literally, if you've been following that band for like 35, almost 40 years, anything is possible. And I think maybe like with Moontooth in the future, anything is possible if you successfully put out like an unplugged record. Your fans will continue to just like whatever they do is fine. Go ahead, guys. You know?
Yeah. Well, I think that that kind of goes back to what we were talking about, where it's important to encourage that kind of curiosity and bravery in what people consume and listen to. If we are trying different things, hopefully we'll encourage people to listen to different things, which might encourage them to try different things in their own life and in their own creative endeavors. But I always think of a good band. An example of this is like Radiohead. I love Radiohead, and they do whatever the fuck they want. You know what I mean? Like, and they're brilliant artists, and I think it's it's just like a great way to be, because the second it turns into like you trying to chase something, it's just not going to work. Just like in your life, you know what I mean? Like if you have, let's say, you're living in your house with your buddies, and it's like during college, or like right after before college, and you're having such a great time, you spend the rest of your life trying to chase that, you're going to be fucking miserable, and you're going to not really be living a good life. And as an artist, if you try to chase any one kind of successful thing you did, it's going to be contrived and shitty. So yeah, we really hope to our fans have been like awesome and very open minded, and we hope to kind of continue that and explore more. Otherwise, what's the fucking point?
Right on. Yeah. Um, and further on to that, so you already said you guys are writing new material. Obviously the world is upside down, but do you guys have sort of a plan yet for a potential, like, what's the scope of 2021 look like for the band, or not yet?
Well, we'll be recording for a while now, through the winter, probably. Obviously, we're not rushing it, because there's not necessarily a reason to like rush an album out there when we can't tour. Um, there were tours that were postponed that hopefully will happen. I'm trying to think what was announced and what wasn't. Okay, so there was a tour with Caligula's Course, that was postponed. Hopefully that'll get rescheduled. It may or may not. It's clear. I guess the plan is to. We had a couple of other tours that got postponed, but yeah, just tour as soon as we can. Get this album out and fucking tour. We're very much like, our ethos is hit the fucking pavement and go hard. Like we've been touring our asses off since from day fucking one. So we want to get out there. It's not the same just staying home and recording and doing these live sessions. I'm grateful for all this during the pandemic, but like, God, there's nothing. I don't know. The four of us, we're born to do this, to be fucking dirty ass road dogs. So yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. At what point, being the front man, especially being at the front, at what point do you think you're going to feel safe to get out and tour, socially distanced, partial venues, a vaccine, and a full sweaty venue with people grabbing the mic? Do you know yet?
It's funny that you asked that, because I haven't once thought of it in that kind of perspective. I guess in my head, I was just thinking, once everyone's touring, then we'll start touring. And in that fantasy land, everything's okay and we don't have to social distance or anything. I don't, I mean, I don't know if, okay, so random shows, maybe in like the tri state area, some socially distant shows where there's specific measures in place and it's a little bit different. That's why the acoustic thing is a lot easier. If we're playing a full on loud rock show and not have, it's a lot to ask people to sit in seats separate from each other. But of course, maybe those things will happen first. But I'm kind of like, in terms of touring, I this whole time I've just been thinking about like, just wait till this whole fucking thing is settled, and like if they whether it's a vaccine or what, hopefully this fucking vaccine works. But I don't I don't think it's smart or wise to kind of jump too early at this, because any little bit of just like, well, things are kind of mellowing out, like maybe it's safe to get some people together. People are so tired of not doing the things they want to do that they're going to get reckless, they're going to get careless. We see it all the time on Long Island, and that's just going to make things fucking worse. I mean, the numbers are already going up. So I think, as a singer though, it's funny that you said that, because I hadn't thought about that. About, I mean, I have my own microphone, so at least I'm not making out with somebody, whoever sang in the last band, via the microphone that they vomited into. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. I don't I don't see it much different as with the other guys or anything like that. I think it's just a matter of just fucking wait till it's safe, because like let's get this industry back up on its feet the right way, and let's not jump the gun. And like, it- our fucking industry involves mass gathering. You know what I mean? We have the potential to be super spreaders and stuff like that. Like, it's not. I want to get out there. Believe me, I don't want to be home. I fucking love being on the road. Like, but yeah, just wait, man.
Wear your masks, everybody. I know people are fatigued and tired and all of that stuff, but obviously look at the numbers, especially this week. They're just going up and up and up. People are obviously not paying attention and not caring anymore, and they need to care because a lot of
Yeah.
people are getting sick. But I don't want to end on a sad note. I want to end on an upbeat note. So as we wind this up and I give you back your evening, man, and I really appreciate hanging out with you. I see your records next to you on the shelf. So of course I'm going to ask you, like, what are you listening to? What's on your record shelf, or what have you been listening to beside your own band stuff this
Ah,
pandemic?
let's see. A bunch of shit. It's kind of tricky. We were talking about this before. I mentioned briefly like I want to be moved, and this and that, and I don't know if it's just like getting older or getting grumpier or anything like that, but there's fewer bands, and it also has to do with my own, like, I'm not actively like, let me go look up all these like lists and playlists and different things and explore more. So I need to do that more myself. But like, there hasn't been as many things that have like really knocked me on my ass. That's what I really fucking look for. But what have I been listening to a lot? Okay, so one band I found on when we were on our last tour that I really fell in love with and did knock me on my ass was Pile. I don't know if you ever heard of them.
Mhm.
What is their most? I don't know if it's their most recent album, but Green. See, I can't even remember the album names, but like Green is Gray or something like that. Or no, that's a Pearls and Brass song. Um, but hold on, I have it right here because I was just listening to it before. I have to fucking pull it up so I don't. I'd like to share it with people. Um, Green and Gray, not Greenest Gray. Okay, so that album is awesome. It's interesting. I listen to a lot of indie rock, primarily. One album that came out this year, and I think like during the pandemic, was Leon Lahavas made a self-titled album, and she's kind of like, it's more like kind of R&B, but just like softer and just really soulful. Absolutely, I've already called it like favorite album of 2020. It's just so much soul, and the way it's engineered with the instruments, like you can hear every creak and every joint and tendon in the guitar's bones and body, and like, I really love that shit. It's engineered really well, and the songs are beautiful, and her voice is amazing, and her guitar playing is awesome. So Leon Havis, Pile. um I apologize, but you got to give me 1 second because I know I'm gonna fucking forget something that I'm gonna be like, oh, I should have fucking mentioned that. um I always go in the fall. I always listen to Me Without You. I don't know why, they just turned into one of those bands that I listen to in the fall, so I've been spinning them a lot. And well, we covered Fiona Apple on the live sessions that we did for Violent Grief. We did this her song Fast as You Can, and they just put out. Hold on, let me do a little ad spot. They just put out this beautiful, for the first time, When the Pawn on vinyl, and it's awesome. 180 gram. I put this on, and I just like stood in the perfect spot with all my like surround sound speakers, and just like, it was like, what do they call ASMR? Is that the thing they call where like you get the tingles and everything?
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
I've been listening to that record a lot, and yeah, other shit that I'll forget later, and I'll feel really regretful that I didn't publicly mention. But yeah,
That's killer though. Yeah, Fiona Apple. She's underrated. I love her last record too, actually.
yeah, I really like that fucking
Not
record.
metal at all, but I dig good song's a good song. Doesn't matter who does it.
Yeah,
All right, man. John, thank you so much for hanging out with Ghost Cult, man. Congratulations on Violent Grief Sessions and all the success with Moon Tooth. Sounds like you guys are handling it well. And be safe and keep upbeat. And we'll hopefully see you at a show in the future when it's safe.
yeah, right on, man. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.